Hi everybody, and thanks for joining me for the Senior Mobility Challenge. I am the Digital Golf Dot. Today we are going to focus on the hips. Now before we start, make sure you like and subscribe to make sure you get the future videos, as well as check the description for directions of how to use this optimally, as well as pre-test and post-test so you can check your progress and see if you're getting better. We are going to start by setting up with our feet wide in kind of what I call a V stance. Now you want your toes to face forward, and then we're just going to make some slight side bends to each side. And as you go down one side, what you're going to feel is a little bit of a stretch on your inner thigh, your groin muscles, also called your adductors. They limit external rotation of your hips, which is a big thing needed in the golf swing. Now make sure as you bend, your chest is staying forward and you're avoiding this rotation one way or the other. We want a pure side bend. And as we get those muscles loosened up, we're going to then make our way up into full standing, and we're going to make a hip up and out movement. Now, if you have trouble balancing, you can take a golf club, give yourself a little bit of extra stability. You'll bring it out front, swing out to the side, back in. So this is going to get us active movement on the muscles and joints here, add a little bit of lubrication to the joint, get everything moving smoother and easier, so that everything else we do today is going to be a little bit more effective. We always want to really preference dynamic, active movements when we're working on mobility. Static stretching just does not work very well. I've seen it both in practice anecdotally, as well as the research agrees. All right, now that we've got those things a little bit warmed up, get rid of our club. We're going to go back into a wide stance, but this time we're going to turn our toes out, and we're going to make a sumo squat movement. So as you squat down, your knees are going to push out over your toes. You don't have to go real deep to start. We're still kind of warming up, but we're really loosening up those adductor muscles. Most of us don't take those muscles through their normal range of motion very often, so they get really stiff and tight, especially if we're working desk jobs all day, because again, we just don't use them. We're going to do one more. Make sure you check in with your breath. Nice big inhale, exhale. We're going to make our way down to one knee. Now, if this is uncomfortable for you, you can put a pad under your knee or a pillow, something to take a little bit of the pressure off of it. We're going to stabilize our core, so chest up. We want to tilt our pelvis back, which is going to allow us to engage the stretch on the front of the hip earlier. If we don't keep that pelvis engaged, we can just kind of go forever. So start here, tip the pelvis back. You should pretty immediately feel a stretch and tension across the hip flexor muscle. And let's just try 2 big deep breaths here. One more. And then we'll switch to the other side. Again, we want to stay nice and tall here, nice powerful posture. Rotate the pelvis back, a little bit of a forward slide, engage the front of the hip. And we'll do 3 breaths on this side since we took a little bit longer on the other side getting set up. Again, nice and tall, like there's a string pulling up through your head, nice posture, chest up. Everything through here it's about control, it's about stability, and it's about mobility. We cannot just have one of those things to make a great golf swing. We need each and every one of them. After that, we're going to go down to both knees. Again, you can have something under your knees if you need to. We're going to rock back, knees close together in the child's pose. I like the top of the feet to be down toward the ground, but if it's uncomfortable, you can tuck your toes under. Or if it's really uncomfortable, you can even put another pillow under your butt to give you a little extra support and stop here. Again, it's not about being perfect today. You can do this video multiple times with the goal of getting better each time. Let's do 2 breaths here. Now, very similar position, but we're going to go knees wide. Again, just a slightly different tension here. And we'll sit back. So this is a lot of hips. Also gets a fair amount of low back, which is going to be helpful. The back and the hips really work so closely together. It's almost impossible to separate the two. Check in, make sure you're controlling your breath. And we're going to come back up. We're going to bring the hands a little bit closer underneath us. Bring your feet toward each other, knees out. We're going to do what I call a frog tuck, where you drop back here. So again, our knees are out, feet are together. We're going to try and drop our hips back, but keep that neutral bend in the lower lumbar spine. And we're going to do 5 of these, making sure we control our breath through each of them. And we've got one more. Again, you can do this video a whole lot of times. Don't feel like you need to be perfect today. Now, we're going to drop down to our stomachs. I'm going to get readjusted. Hands out front. The first thing we're going to do, bend a knee. And I just like to rotate the hips each way. Drop my foot in, and then drop my foot out. And just back and forth. Again, every once in a while, we just want to make sure to create some rotation between that ball and the socket and the hip joint to get it prepped for some of these future movements where we really target the muscles and stretch everything out. But we're only going to reach our maximum function. Go ahead and switch sides. If we make sure the joint is moving well also. Plus, it's great for joint health. If you have arthritis, these can be a great thing to do. They generally are very well tolerated. And they get that synovial fluid moving around the joint, which is what lubricates it, kind of like WD-40 for your joints, and gets everything loosened up. Again, check in, make sure you're still controlling your breathing. I'm going to drop that leg down. We're then going to bring our hands next to us, press your hands into the ground, peel your chest up, arch through the lower back, and drop back down. We're going to do 5 of these. Again, control your breathing. A lot of people like an inhale at the bottom. Exhale as they press. Inhale back on the way down. And the last repetition. Still controlled breathing. And we'll drop. And then next, we're going to go into a down dog. I'm going to wiggle a little bit forward so my feet are on the mat. I get my toes tucked under. I push through my hands, and I drop back. Now, there's a pretty good chance that you're tight and you look something like this. That's okay. Your hamstrings are going to lengthen over time. You can give them some help by driving your hands into the ground, pedal out your feet. Just start trying to move everything. And if you don't have enough upper body strength for this pose yet, that's okay. You can hang out one of those previous poses or just get as close as you can. Again, we're gonna tidy all this up as we go, and you'll get better pretty rapidly. And you'll drop over your hands, lower yourself down. We're gonna flow, which means we're gonna press up, come down, press off the table, and press back. Controlling our breath, we're going to repeat that 2 more times. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, so if you're not ready for it just yet, that's perfectly acceptable. You just hang out, find one of those earlier positions that you felt like you need to work on, and get a little stretch and breathe there. This is our last one. Perfect. Then we'll come down, drop to our knees, and then down onto our butts. So, arms might be a little bit tired. If you haven't done stuff like that before, that's okay. Let's do 1 deep breath. Reset. Perfect. Now 1, I'm sure all of you can do. We're going to go knee to chest. So we're going to grab the 1 knee. We'll bring it up. I also like to let it fall out to the side. Give it another little pull before I let it come back down, and then I'll switch sides. And we'll just alternate sides for 5 each. And then we'll go into another movement called starfish, where we really start getting the outside of the hips and the glutes, as well as the lower back, and even a little bit of thoracic spine. But we want to make sure the hip joint is nice and flexible before we go into that movement. Reminder to check in for your breath. Good. One more. Hopefully those hip joints are really starting to loosen up now. And again, next we're going to go into a starfish twist. I'm going to move a little bit to the side here. What you'll do is you'll let your arms drop out to the sides. Your goal is to try and keep your hands down on the ground. You can take one leg and let it roll over. And you just go as far as comfortable. Now I can drop all the way over here, but I've been doing movements like this for a while. If your foot's still in the air, not a problem. You roll back, and then you roll over. And we're just going to repeat this motion a few times. Again, still controlling our breath. If you start feeling yourself get really out of breath during those videos, then you need to dial it back a little bit, because yoga is really about controlling your breath while making these mobility movements. Good. And then we're going to switch sides. I'm going to scoot over a little bit just to give myself a little more room. One leg drops, this leg up, and we'll turn. And we're going to repeat this one 5 times. Still controlling that breath. Last one. Remember, trying to keep the hands down on the ground. Perfect. You might hear some pops and clicks and clacks, and that's perfectly fine. That's just the joint settling and moving. We're going to come up to seated next for our last little series here. We like a butterfly pose, feet together, let the knees drop down. The farther your feet are in, the harder. So if you are not comfortable here, and then you give yourself a little bit more room, let your feet hang out in front of you, and work on the position here. Breathing, pushing the knees down, and then over time, maybe after 30 seconds today as it loosens up, or maybe next week or later this week when you do the video again, move them up, and then you kind of continue moving them up, and eventually you'll get much closer and then really be able to drive your legs down with it. Even I have got some work to do on these ones, because you'll run into some people whose feet are basically touching them and their knees are flat on the ground, which is pretty impressive. And next, in our final movement, we're going to go into a V-sit leg roll. This is a great one because it's adaptable for basically anyone. You're going to start sitting up, resting back on your arms. You're going to tilt your toe back, poke your leg out, and then you're going to roll out and in, out and in. And I'm going to do 5 aside. I'll a lot of times do these for 15 to 20 reps, but for this video, we're going to keep it shorter. I like to do these a lot of times watching TV, prepping for a workout. And just make sure my hips are staying mobile. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. 5 reps apiece. You're typically not going to have a whole lot of internal rotation motion, which is at this position here. Especially for men, we really aren't built with the anatomy to allow a whole lot of that motion. So that's pretty normal. Next, bring your hands out front. Now this is not a reach like we're reaching forward. This is just resting the hands in front, tension the lumbar fascia a little bit differently. And we're going to tilt back, poke out, and do these rotations again 5 times each. And this is one I see people improve at relatively rapidly. I'll have people do this every day, 3 or 4 sets, and they get better pretty quickly, which is awesome. And they notice a difference in their swing, which is even more important. 2 more. Remember to check in, deep breath. And that will be the final movement for our hip video. Go check out those pre and post testing videos so that you can make sure you're getting better with these different movements. Make sure you've liked and subscribed so you can catch the next video of the Digital Golf Docs Senior Mobility Challenge. Thanks.